On Alter Ego, we explore where the sacred meets the psychological. We discuss sensitive topics involving trauma and mental health through an educational and ethical lens.
We aim to bring understanding, openness, and curiosity, not sensationalism. Listener discretion is advised. I'm going to give my content warnings, and I want you to take your headphones off so that you're surprised.
Ooh, I love this game. Okay.
I'll tell you when. Content warnings for this episode contain discussion of death, sorcery, and zombification within the context of Haitian Voodoo and folklore. Listener discretion is advised.
Yay. I don't know. Tell me why I slightly panicked, because I was like, oh, how am I going to know? She says I'm going to tell you when. And I'm like, girl, you can see her.
You can see her. Oh my goodness. I also like that just a minute ago I could hear purrs into the microphone.
Yes, I was going to move her, but then she bit me. So I was like, so you know what? You can hang out right there.
Let her hear the story. Let her hear it, because I'm excited to tell you this story.
Oh, okay.
This is one where I started doing the notes and I was excited already, but then I learned more. And then I felt like I was researching for a real paper or something, because it got to a point where I had enough that I had to actually flip the order of how I'm presenting this to you. So very much how you presented snake handling is where it's going to feel like we're going today, because I just need to tell you some stuff first.
I love, and you know what I love? Listening to stuff.
I'm a big stuff girl.
Oh my God.
Okay. So I know I've been focusing mostly, I think both of us have pretty much, mostly on Christian-centric crimes at this point. So I'm taking a very hard left, and we are veering into one of the strangest true crime cases that rides between folklore, your bag, science, faith, and the supernatural. Have you ever heard of Makaya Voodoo?
Makaya?
Makaya. And let me throw a disclaimer in here that I did look up how to say all of these words, and I have since slept. So there's a good chance that has left my brain, and I may get some of this wrong, but I will try my hardest. So the word itself is said in some sources to mean leaves, like fall leaves. So think forest, herbal knowledge, nature magic. I am reading it thinking green witch, right? That's the vibe that it gives me, except it's nothing like that, and we'll get to it. But that's the word itself invokes that feeling. So Makaya Voodoo itself is a branch of Haitian Voodoo, because, and I knew a little bit about this because, fun fact, I published my first book at 19, and it was heavily about voodoo. And I had to do a lot of research to make sure I didn't sound like an idiot talking about that. But even that, so much of this was new. So there's a whole lot. But it shouldn't be a surprise, right? Because just like with Christianity, you have so many branches. You could be Baptist, you could be Catholic, you could be, you could be Mormon, whatever. So same thing here. There's a lot of flavors to this faith. So Makaya focuses more on spiritual or magical power, as well as personal agency. Okay, we like that. Traditional voodoo, pretty consistent from one practitioner to another. You're not going to see a lot of variations of like how the rituals go or what the rituals are for. Whereas Makaya varies from person to person. So that's that personal agency piece that they all kind of have their own thing, and no one's really going to the other to say, how would you do this? Like, it's their own vibe. But while the term may invoke that sort of green witch imagery, in fact, that's not anything like it, because there's a very strong emphasis with this practice on aggressive spiritual work, which can include vengeance as well.
When you said Haitian Voodoo, I clenched up a little bit. Not gonna lie. One thing I do know is not something that I'm gonna mess with. So you saying vengeance feels like very...
Yeah, this is really, you would not touch this. This is one of those things where it's funny, because I feel like most every white woman identifying person knows somehow a lot about witchcraft. It's something that I think we all wind up looking into or thinking we know about or getting bad info from or whatever. But I think we all go through some phase where for some reason we feel very called to do that and know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, some of that can be fun. Some of it can be safe in terms of open practices and learning about things. But then, of course, there are pieces where you would go, I don't think that's for me. That seems a little dark. Ooh, that involves my blood, right? Like there are just pieces
Mm-hmm.
that you would go, I'm a pass on that, but I'll do this one for
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's whatever. This, however, to your point, there's really no element that someone that isn't raised in that is going
Mm-hmm.
to go, I think I'm going to start doing that. It's not really something that happens.
Is this a closed practice?
Yeah, and Haitian voodoo is a closed practice in general. And I
Okay.
I would say that this one is even more closed if that's possible. It's
Okay.
extra closed. There's like an iron
Yeah.
gate on it. So it still has traceable roots, primarily to Kongo traditions. But when it comes to voodoo, priests and priestesses in the Makaya sect specifically, there are different names for the men and the women and what they do, different roles as
Mm.
well. Again, I feel like you see that in most religions, right? Where you're going
Mm-hmm.
to have a priest versus a nun versus a bishop or whatever. So the men are called bokor,
How do you spell it?
Bokor. So the men are called bokor and do both white and black magic, while female practitioners may be called serviteur, mambo, or sorcière. Depends on the context. Roles and titles may vary, but
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking, that's what's happening here. So, and something that different, well, there's a lot of things that differentiate this from regular traditional voodoo, but it's also different in the sense that the spirits or the aiwa present in this practice are different. So spirits that often appear include Urzuli Danto and Simbi Makaya, and there are rhythms, songs, and possessions that can be very aggressive. So, in all aspects of voodoo, there are spirits that are sort of your middleman, if you will, but these are different. Like you wouldn't run into the same ones in traditional voodoo. So, again, voodoo in itself is a closed practice. So, it's not like voodoo practitioners are out here screaming about what they do and how to do it and posting tutorials, right? But there's still enough eyewitness stuff and documentation that you can at least learn about it and get some pretty good ideas of what certain things work and how they look and what are involved, but not with Makaya. This is very secretive, very ambiguous. In fact, most of what's known is literally rumor.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So some of it has come from observation, but as you can imagine, it's not easily observed. So a lot of it is just hearsay.
Mm.
No one can really agree if it's fully distinct from Orthodox voodoo or if it's more of a Venn diagram.
Mm.
But again, considering that even the spirits you're dealing with are different, even in a Venn diagram sense, you're not going to have a whole lot of overlap. But practitioners are very quick to point out that it is not simply evil because it's very protective of its own.
Mm.
So, just to kind of recap, Makaya is very closed, not documented much at all, and not really accessible to outsiders by any means. Culturally and socially, Makaya is often associated with communities experiencing stress or conflict, where people turn to magical or spiritual power for protection and justice. And it exists alongside other secret societies in Haiti, like Bizongo, which have historically been both feared and respected. And these societies often enforce community norms, resolve disputes, provide protection. But with all of this and even how secretive it is, Makaya does influence Haitian pop culture through ritual songs, symbols, and stories, though it's often portrayed in a very fearful way. So it's sort of like, we're going to teach you about it to scare you as parents, kind of thing.
Mm.
So some of the key figures and spirits that I mentioned include Simbi Makaya, who's often described as as a powerful magician associated with sorcery and medicinal knowledge. Urzuli Danto also appears as an important spirit. The Bokor, as I mentioned, is the male practitioner who works with benevolent and malevolent magic. And outsiders sometimes use words like malefic magic to describe their work. But here's a little fun fact. Something that also sets them apart from the rest is that they make zombies.
Like practical magic zombies, or
They make zombies.
please, whatever do you mean?
Okay. So Bokors, the sorcerers of Makaya, are said to make and or control zombies. Unlike Orthodox voodoo priests, whose focus is like community service and balance with the spirits, Makaya bokors are stereotypically willing to use both benevolent and malevolent magic, including zombification. And that makes Makaya the rite most often linked to this feared practice. Now, I will say there are several ways that zombification has been explained. Spiritually, the bokor is said to trap a person's soul, the bon ange, and enslave the body. Without its animating soul, the person becomes a mindless laborer under the sorcerer's control.
Ooh, that hits a little different. Yikes.
Now, go ahead.
No, I'm my question. You already started to answer my question. I was going to ask for clarification just prior to this about what exactly in what way, because it's not like Zombieland zombie.
Except it is. It's definitely dead people coming back to life.
So both living and the dead. It could be either.
You would have to be dead to be a zombie.
So you have to die. That's the precursor.
You are undead. Yep.
Okay. Got it.
So pharmacologically, there are some theories, but that's boring, so we're going to discuss that later. So socially, zombification has been understood as punishment, a sanction for those who violated community norms like theft, betrayal, family abandonment, and being made into a zombie was both feared and a deterrent because, well, I don't want to be turned into a zombie, so I guess I'll stay faithful to my partner, or I guess I won't steal this thing, or because I don't want to become a zombie. So Makaya's reputation for enforcing justice through secret means ties it directly to this role. So some of the Iowa or spirits associated with Makaya are also linked to zombification already. So
I am so sad. Do you see how sad?
I know you're like not.
I have my hands crossed and my legs crossed in my lap, like I am in class.
Fully giving a lecture to Jeri.
I am zombies.
Just
okay.
Wait.
Yeah.
Just
all right. Okay.
So Simbi Makaya, who I've mentioned a couple times now, is sometimes described as that master of sorcery, but also as a master of zombie making. So in some accounts, spirits of the dead are bound or bottled by practitioners, which parallels the idea of a living person's soul being captured and enslaved. So like literally like sucking the soul out and like putting it in a bottle.
Thinking about how this has been put into pop culture.
Because of this, we're going to get there.
Okay.
Yes, you're all over it.
I have like 5 different visuals pop up in my head of different scenes and movies that
This is where zombies started.
Okay.
So, but it's important to note, so a little disclaimer here, that not every Makaya practitioner engages in zombification, and many deny it outright, which to me just sounds like they didn't do it. They didn't know how. Sucks to suck, okay? Yeah. So the zombie maker label is partly kind of given from outsiders, also partly Haitian belief, because again, they're sort of folkloring this into their community, and partly based on rare but sensational cases. So still, in Haitian culture, the association is strong. If someone is said to be a bokor, people may assume that they can create zombies. It's like the first place that their brains go. So now with that background, let's talk about the most famous case of zombification, the story of Clairvius Narcisse.
Okay.
All right. So first, he needs to die. So in 1962...
Step 1.
Dying. Scene 1, death. So in 1962 in Haiti, Clairvius is a farmer. He's in his 40s. And I feel like I keep starting stories this way. He checks himself into a hospital, but not inpatient, just like an emergency room. So he had a fever. He had extreme, 1962.
Okay, 62. Okay.
He had a fever, extreme fatigue, and was coughing up blood. And doctors could not figure out the cause. It's possible that maybe his mom took a lot of Tylenol when she was pregnant with him.
You know what? That does make sense.
I've heard it's pretty bad. So 3 days later, he died.
It was definitely the Tylenol.
The end, he died. And he was dead. They moved him to the morgue for a full day and then buried him. And that should have truly been the end of his story, except that 18 years later, he showed up in his home village very much alive.
He just walked in a door, or like what was the?
He walked into town.
He just. Do we have a visual on the? Wait, 18 years. Wait a second. 1962. Wait a second. Hold on. Wait, guys, I'm bad at math. Hold on. 62, 18. That's 1980.
In 1980, he reappeared. And the first person he spoke to was his sister. And she recognized him.
Had he aged at all? What's the... Do we know what he's... Does anybody have a visual
We
on
know
him?
what he's been up to. We know what he's been up to. So I love that. Okay. So if he's aged, he hasn't aged enough that he's unrecognizable, because his sister sees him walking into their village and is like, what the hell? That's my brother. His entire family recognized him. And if there was any doubt at all that it was really him, he erased it, because he was able to recount his childhood nickname, family memories, things that, you wouldn't know. Narcisse explained that he had been conscious for his burial, but paralyzed. After the burial, he says that a voodoo priest, a bokor, exhumed him and gave him some kind of paste. Here's where I will pause for some vocab. In voodoo, the Iowa are spirits, like I said, who are sort of intermediaries between humans and Bondier, which is the supreme creator. So that's like their version of Sky Daddy.
Sky Daddy. Say it one more time.
Bondier.
Bondier.
Bondye.
Bondier.
Bondier is responsible for the universe, but basically way too cool for human contact. There has to be some middle men, if you will, to communicate. So practitioners interact with the Iowa instead.
Wow. Okay.
And there's also a ranking system with, as far as like bokor go, that there are grand masters that are said to be reborn every century. So we're also talking reincarnation.
Generational reincarnation.
You got it. There's also, with this, a very dark political layer here, because Haiti's dictator in the 1960s, Francois Papadoc Duvalier, was rumored to have used zombies as an army. His second in command, Luckner Cambroni, was nicknamed the Vampire of the Caribbean for selling blood and cadavers to the US. And I'm saying this, it feels like I just tangented, but I'm saying this because having someone return from the dead kind of just felt like par for the course.
This is not some, like, oh my God. It does feel, of course, I'm sure, for his family. But this is not an unfamiliar thing, is what we're saying.
Correct. Yeah. They're like, well, I mean, zombies are real, so why shouldn't my brother walk in when he's been dead for almost 2 decades? So already a lot of darkness tied to this context. So back to Narcisse. So after being exhumed, he's given that paste. And it subdued him enough not to resist, but not enough to incapacitate him.
Is this ingested, is the assumption?
It seems like it was ingested. Yeah, I don't think it was topical. I think it was like some sort of paste that was put in his mouth.
Okay.
And so he's forced to work on a sugar plantation with other zombies. I'm curious as to him saying that he was conscious for his burial, because he was declared dead by multiple people and put in a morgue and then stayed in that morgue for a day. So it's interesting that he's not saying, I died and then woke up and was given this paste. He's saying, well, I was conscious for that. I was buried alive. Because it almost seems like the paste would have needed to come first, but that's how he's recounting it. Who am I to judge?
There's also, it makes me think of, this is not the first time I've heard of a whole, oh my gosh, this person was thought to have been dead, or...
And here they come.
And yeah, or that their pulse was really low, or that they were, like, you're in a conscious coma kind of situation where they're like, oh, this person is actually brain dead, and somehow they come back and they're like, no, I was aware of everything that was going on the whole time, kind of thing. That's what it's making me think of, but I don't know enough about any of that to make any kinds of correlations.
Me neither. And I think that there are some sorts of like toxins and poisons that can make you, to your point, slow your pulse down enough that if someone were to feel it, they would say you didn't have one, but you did. Because I had the same thought of like, well, I guess he could have been dead-ish, but I don't know.
I'm also trying to do this logically. I'm recognizing that my logic brain is wanting to take over, and it's like, oh
Yeah.
wait, no, okay, I'm just gonna let myself slip into the acceptance of the
Of the
unknown
illogical. Yeah.
and illogical.
So he's on this sugar plantation working with other zombies, and he stayed there for 2 years
Oh,
until the bokor who controlled him died.
whoa,
And during that time, Narcisse said he was kept in a trance by strange powders and food, but when the bokor died, the spells broke.
wow. Okay, do we know any details about if that is the case universally within this practice? If
I I would think so, and I think that that's
Mhm.
kind of supernatural lore, right? Is if someone does have a hex on you, if they die, it's broken
You're
kind of thing.
broken.
But as
Interesting
you're
that you remain alive, though.
it's a great point. Yeah.
I wonder. Okay, just a curiosity.
No, that's a really good point.
Uh
Yeah.
huh.
You don't die, you're just sort of like, "Oh, I'm aware again."
Uh huh.
As you're probably putting together or
Mm-hmm.
about to say to me, he didn't return home right away because he waited 16 years to go home. I thought that was weird.
That I mean, depends on what you got going on at home.
Well, he had a family.
It depends on what you got going on at home.
Well, he had a family, but he also had some bad blood with his brother. And there was
Mm.
also some rumor that he had abandoned his family. And if you remember, one of the rumors of how you might be turned into a zombie is if you were punished for abandonment.
Oh, abandonment.
Mhm.
Whoa.
Yeah, so there were some rumors that he had abandoned his family. So when he finally came back and said that he had been a zombie, the whole village believed him. He explained that a voodoo priest had taken his soul, and they were like, "Yes, no follow-up questions." Right? That made sense to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We're used to having a whole army.
Yeah. So his death had been confirmed by two American doctors,
Okay.
which made the case a lot harder to dismiss. Psychiatrist Lamarck Dion, who had long studied zombies, very cool flex, reached out to colleagues in America. And this brought Canadian ethnobotanist Wade Davis to Haiti.
Ethnobotanist.
Botanist. Ethnobotany is the interdisciplinary study of how people and their cultures use plants, focusing on traditional knowledge, medicinal uses, and cultural significance of plants. So, granted, here comes this guy, and he gets his hands on some powders that are said to be used in zombification. So, he'd been given a mix of tetrodotoxin and bufotoxin through abraded skin. So like he had some cuts, or maybe they made some cuts, and then maybe that paste was put there. So perhaps it was topical. This induced a death-like coma. So just like what you and I were hypothesizing about,
Oh wow. Okay.
could have done that. So he was buried, then exhumed, and then given datura to keep him docile. So pharmacologically, Wade Davis argued that zombies were created using these powders, sometimes called coup de poudre, with ingredients like tetrodotoxin from pufferfish. That's where that comes from.
Oh my god, I had a pufferfish whenever I was little.
That what?
Actually, I had two, but one pufferfish ate the other one, and then he died because he ate the other pufferfish.
Do you think that maybe your mom had called him and said, "I only want one pufferfish. I'm going to need you to do something when Jeri walks by"?
No, she said, I don't want any pufferfish. So
Oh my God.
could you guys take care of that?
Yeah.
Wow, pufferfish are so
Puffy.
unassuming. Who would have known?
Who would've
Zombie-like
known?
state from a pufferfish. It's not venom.
But it's a toxin, because that's why,
Toxin.
if you were to eat one, like at a sushi place, it has to be prepared perfectly or it could kill you. So anyway, so the tetrodotoxin from pufferfish, toxins from toads,
Whoa.
and then also ground glass or herbs. Those two things are different, but
Ground glass.
these could induce a death-like state.
Okay.
Later, antidotes or hallucinogens like datura, the zombie cucumber, kept the victim disoriented and compliant. So that's what he had said. That's what he assumes has happened to this. Well, I shouldn't say assumes. That's what he theorizes has happened. And Davis himself reported that he met bokors associated with Makaya lineages in southern Haiti while investigating these cases. But I do find that a little hard to believe because it's such a secretive thing that it's hard to
Yeah.
believe that some Canadian ethnobotanist could come out and find a couple to talk
Right.
to.
Right. Right.
But whatever, maybe whatever. So ultimately, the argument that he presented was that the powders didn't enslave victims long term, but they created this very convincing death and resurrection experience.
Okay.
But Davis's findings were disputed. In fact, toxicologists called it bad science,
Ooh.
even fraud. And they said, we don't think it's malicious. We don't think that he was out here trying to do this really wrong or spread this false information, but it was at minimum incomplete. And it left out a lot of data that could disprove his claims.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's what we call bad research.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just enough research and with just enough explanation that I think it's really easy to grasp hold of and go, okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah, there's nothing. It strips it of its fear.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I know what all these things are. I know what a pufferfish is. There's this cucumber situation. Like, I know. Okay, that makes sense.
I know you're not supposed to lick a toad,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
make you
Mm-hmm.
hallucinate, right? But I had. No, I'm kidding. So let's talk about the crime angle of this. Regardless of whether it was pharmacology or sorcery or both, let's call it what it was. If it happened, and it seems that there is evidence that it happened somehow, it was a crime. There was enslavement, poisoning, and technically human trafficking. And I would also argue kidnapping, technically.
Yeah, forced removal from your place of burial. Can we add that to the
Forced removal from your grave? Yeah, where you
from
were
your
just
dwelling?
resting.
Yeah, seriously. Let a guy sleep. Damn.
Let him sleep off that headache he had.
Yeah.
So his story, to your point, is proof that fear and belief can definitely be weaponized to strip someone of their freedom, of their autonomy. But the fact that it was framed as supernatural probably kept people from seeing it as like criminal exploitation, unless it was real, because there's always that argument that he was super dead. And regardless of what pace or whatever he was given, it resurrected him.
Well, wouldn't that still be, do zombies have rights? Is
I
basically
was going to
what
say, can you keep a zombie as a pet? I don't know.
I mean, if we're just throwing around questions here, it's like, that still feels like not okay. If it was the case, this person is resurrected from the dead, they're a being of some kind. It's like, how do you determine whether or not that person or entity is worthy of?
Even monsters can provide confirmed consent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Informed consent.
Informed consent.
Confirmed? We're Catholic.
I went right along with it. I was like,
Even monsters can provide informed consent. That might be our first merch piece. But I mean, yeah, like why I think I'm with you that even if you're a supernatural being, you still should have the right to say, no thanks, I'm just gonna stay here. I don't want to go work on your sugar plantation.
Yeah.
So this case, it blurred folklore and true crime. But it also, to your original point, really fueled Hollywood's zombie obsession. But behind the sensationalism was still this guy who was claiming that he had been robbed of nearly 2 decades of his life, even though technically he was really robbed of 2 years of his life. He just sort of
chose the other 16.
Gone.
Do we know what he did?
Yeah.
Did he talk about what he did during the 16 years? We
don't know. Couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything about what he did. And I'm so curious about it because I wonder, he had to be doing something. Wouldn't it be such a twist if he took over the zombies and he actually just took on that mantle and became the enslaver? The overseer.
I mean, talk about, have you read My Grandmother's Hands? Talk about generational trauma.
You told me to. Yeah.
I bring it up all the time. This like generational reenactment. Oh my God. Yeah. I was thinking, what if he went and lived a whole other life and was like, yeah, I don't really like this. And he just was like, I'm going to go back over here and they'll be happy I'm back.
I had the same thought of he probably just abandoned some other family. And he's just leaving all of them in his wake. Actually, my gosh, what if he left that family but he was going to fake his own death. And that was his plan all along with the first one. But then he was kidnapped and turned into a zombie. So that was a big oops. So now he was going to go back to the hospital, maybe try this again. And then instead decided, I'll just go back home.
Wait, this is the loophole that like closes all the other loops. Or this is the fixture that closes all the other loops, is that if he tried to fake his own death, he wasn't successful, but there were other people who were other practitioners, I'm gonna call it practitioners, seems right to
Yeah.
me. Voodoo workers that are aware that that was happening, and he's a family abandoner. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, all right, I think we solved it.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I think there are a lot of assumptions and hypotheses that you could make, and all of them would probably have some sound logic to them.
Yeah.
I also, I couldn't find anything about the people that were saying that his data could be disproved, the Canadian ethnobotanists. They didn't say, and here it is. I would have really liked to have seen that, because
Oh,
to
wow.
me, that's still the best explanation I have, is that the paste just had all these toxins on it.
Yeah, if you're going to
And
disagree, then give us the.
yeah, tell us
Mhm.
why. But yeah, I had never heard of that case.
No,
I
never.
And it's so popular. There have been books written about it, movies done about it. A lot of zombie stuff has just been inspired by it in general. And
Mhm.
again, the zombie work goes way predates Hollywood's original, Night of the Living Dead sort of stuff. So
Mhm.
the zombie stuff goes way back. This case in the 60s just happened to get the most traction because it was so sensational. And I think it had such a um, uh, international pull because so many
Mhm.
people were getting involved from different countries. So I think it just got the most attention. But yeah, that's my story.
Not once have I ever thought, where did the concept of zombies originate? It's never been something that I've thought about. I just accept it as part of.
I kind of just thought Jesus was the first one. I'm not saying that to sound like a jerk, but I am
No.
saying the idea that someone died and then was resurrected. But of
Mhm.
course, then it just sort of turned into more Hollywood monster than prophet.
Mhm.
But I mean, still the same idea. You were dead, now you're not dead.
Wow. I have I have so many little offshoots of thoughts. I One of the first things I thought of whenever you were talking about trapping a spirit was the way in The Little Mermaid. This is such a stark
The
contrast.
voice, like
The voice
getting her
in Little
voice out.
Mermaid, yeah, like this pulling, or like in Hercules when the spirits are like pulled into the pull into Hades' pool, of spirits, and all the mythology around that and what it was born from. Obviously didn't originate with Walt Disney.
Who
um,
knows? Maybe he was a bokor. I don't know.
mm. And the other thing that I thought about was, I've always been so just enthralled by any types of depictions of voodoo practitioners in media, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's, shows, movies. It's always so charged, I guess is the right way to put it. It always has like kind of been something that has piqued my curiosity. So this one was really cool to learn about.
And like I said, this was just a very, very high level overview of one branch of voodoo. There is so much. And I mean, truly, there's enough that it could be its own podcast, right? Just the understanding of the history of it and the different sects of
Mm-hmm.
it and
Mm-hmm.
what those beliefs are. If we know what those beliefs are, I mean, it's so fascinating. It really, really is. But I think there's a very common misconception, assumption, stereotype feels like a good word, that voodoo is just evil and it's just a lot of like
Totally.
animal sacrifices and shaking
Mm-hmm.
bones and screaming and stuff, when that's not the case.
Mm-mm.
But I think to have this branch of voodoo that is very dark and
Mm-hmm.
much about I let's make an analogy. Makaya voodoo is to voodoo what Anton LaVey's Church of Satan is to belief. Like it's very much you think that you're going to understand it by default, and then you start digging into it and go, oh, this is different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, yeah, interesting, strange. I really don't know where I land with it.
Yeah, how did you feel while you were looking into it, and what did you think about?
I want, I want to believe that he truly was dead and then was resurrected,
Mm-hmm.
and that happened. I tend to believe that probably he was buried somewhat alive and then basically kidnapped. And that there was enough cultural practice and spiritual practice in that there's a really good chance that he stayed very drugged and also almost convinced that it was real, right? Because if you believe a thing and then you're told something that cements that belief,
Mm-hmm.
that's not really the time when you're going to go, I have some doubts and questions, right? Like now you are in this position where you're thinking, I have been zombified, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like, you know what it makes me think of is when like an impressionable, almost like a kid, is brought to a really intense revival and told, to go up on stage or to go up or whatever. And it's this very intense process, right? Where you kind of are in a very tight line and it's just one after another, and you get up there and before you know what's even happening, you're being pushed on the forehead and yelled at by some man, and you probably don't even have time to catch your balance, and so if you fall backwards, everyone's going to look at that and go, oh, wow, and you as a kid are going to go, oh my gosh, what just happened? That was God. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it has shaped your belief, because you're not going to then go, I think I would like to deconstruct what just happened and think about it
Mm-mm.
logically and understand that I actually was just in a tizzy and that happened and I don't know what to do with it. So I feel like it's that sort of thing where if he was buried alive, if he was, somehow pronounced dead when he wasn't, that if he was dug up and all of a sudden that you were just looking at the lid of a coffin and now you're looking at this man and this man is rubbing a paste on you or forcing a paste in your mouth or whatever's happening, I can't imagine the nervous system chaos happening there.
Mm-hmm.
But I can imagine that likely it wasn't, let me pause and reflect on this. So, yeah.
My main curiosity goes back to this overall concept that there was a large group of people that were zombies at any given point in time, and that was used as part of an, did you say army or
An
war?
army.
Army, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do we, I really want to learn more about that, but I know it may be like a branch off that wasn't further explored. But I'm thinking to myself how much my opinion might change, or perspective, or thoughts, feelings about this if he was one of many versus a one off.
Yeah, that's a good point because this was in the 1960s, which is also when that dictator had allegedly used zombies as an army. So let's see. Francois Papadoc, Army of Zombies. Let's see. So this says he did not have a literal army of zombies, allegedly, but he deliberately exploited Haitian voodoo beliefs about zombies to terrorize the population
Mm.
and strengthen his regime. So he used the myth that he had these zombies to portray himself as a powerful sorcerer who controlled life and death. And his brutal secret police were often described as his zombies. And his paramilitary force was incredibly violent and used a lot of intimidation. And they carried out assassinations, torture, and kidnappings. Yeah, so he fostered the rumors himself about being a very powerful bokor and connected his enforcers to the imagery of zombies and other figures of the night.
Wow, so he utilized the cultural practices as a means of oppression.
Yes, because you have to remember that the zombies in voodoo are not brain eating zombies, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
an undead individual that now only obeys their puppeteer, essentially. So, yes, he's oppressing everybody and eliminating his opponents, political opponents, by killing them, whatever. But it's not by his hand, right? He's just telling his army of zombies to do it, but it's just his
Wow.
very, very violent police force.
I haven't even This is going to be one that I feel like I think about for a little while. And then I'm so curious how the intersection of like how we do a disservice, I guess, is where my brain is going, of looking at the nuance of cultural practices within mental health spaces, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so curious. It's just so wild that so many cultural practices would be considered quote unquote delusional hallucinations, hospital worthy, right? Of if you were to take that and for it to be in an isolated sense, right? To take it in a vacuum and plop it into, 2025, uh, rural Michigan. You know what I mean? Like if you were to plop it into
Absolutely.
somewhere. Wow.
Yeah, because imagine if someone, like you're saying, just someone in the Midwest was like, I'm terrified that my brother is a zombie or that I'm going to be turned
Mm-hmm.
into a zombie. Of course, that would be very, very different.
Wow. Very appreciative. This one was a thinker.
Well, I liked this one because one, it was a different belief system, but also still a very powerful example of how fear remains the ultimate oppressor.
Yes.
Whether it's fear of damnation or fear of
Mm-hmm.
zombification, that across all belief systems, there is some element of or else.
Yeah. That's the first thing I thought of or that's the first thing I thought of when you said fear of becoming a zombie. I'm like, oh, it's just in place of fear of burning in hell.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's like
Hmm.
a hell on earth kind of thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Great job. This one had a different air. You can feel that it just has a different air to it. Like it just
Hmm.
feels different to talk about and it feels different to listen to. And wow, I'm so super cool. Very
Yeah.
appreciative.
Thanks. Thanks for listening.
How do we,
Oh, you know what we didn't do? We didn't do our little
oh, we
intro,
didn't. We sure didn't. So we can like wrap up here and then
and then we'll do that.
do our little intro. Well, I am very much so looking forward to sitting with this one. I'm gonna look into one of the books that I'm reading. There's some mentions of voodoo and how it was non-consensually brought over to the States.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm probably gonna return with some further curiosities or just kind of, as a follow-up. That would be pretty cool to kind of I'm gonna skip forward in that chapter because the book that I'm reading is like it does not like you can skip around and like learn about different things, but
Cool.
wow, fantastic.
Well,
Oh my
let me know what
gosh.
you learn, and I look very forward to hearing your case next week.
Oh my gosh. All right, cool. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.